Azulejos are ceramic tiles that have been used for centuries as a decorative element in Portugal. The early azulejos were used for palaces and churches and often told stories or depicted historical events. Since the 14th century, azulejo tilework has become a symbol of the creative spirit of Portugal and the vibrant art scene. Traditionally, each azulejo tile is a handmade piece that requires artisan skill and craftsmanship. Collectively, the tiles combine to become a beautiful and intricate work of art where each individual tile plays a role in the overall design. Similarly, the international creatives of Portugal participate in the local art scenes, contributing to the creative community. Meet Miriam, an illustrator from Italy, Clara, a circus performer and musician from Germany, Gareth, the artist farmer from Ireland, Giulia, a musician from Italy, and Mukkul, a cinematographer from India. Join me as I journey through Portugal to interview them about their creative process. Hello, Milocraft here. In 2022, I achieved my 20-year anniversary at Warner Bros. Discovery as a video game artist. During that time, I worked on games including DC Comics and the Lord of the Rings universes, such as Justice League Heroes and Shadow of Mordor, which won Best Game of the Year. Compared to the film industry, that's like winning Best Picture at the Oscars, so I'm particularly proud of that. Among other things, I'm a cinematic systems designer, filming the combat and stories of the game. I was awarded a 1-month intermission sabbatical to focus on a creative project. I wanted to be inspired by interesting people in a foreign land, but where would I go? Earlier in life, I was in Brazil where I learned to speak Portuguese. I had never been to Europe, so Portugal seemed like the perfect location. I designed my sabbatical project with 2 goals. First, I would develop my musical skills by writing and recording a song. The second goal came from a desire to be inspired by interesting people. I decided to interview creatives about their creative process. I advertised the project by posting a video on various Portuguese social media groups, and curiously, every willing participant turned out to be from anywhere but Portugal. I departed Seattle with a mobile production studio on my back. After a 27-hour flight and layover, I found myself in the heart of the historic Alfama district of Lisbon. I arrived at my studio apartment where I would cook meals, work on my music, and get some sleep. The prospect of exploring this beautiful country and meeting fellow creatives was full of promise. My sabbatical project was the opportunity of a lifetime, and I could feel the adventure awaiting me. Lisbon, or Lisboa in Portuguese, is the capital city of Portugal. Continuously populated since 12,000 BC, it is one of the oldest cities in the world. The attractive old architecture, hills, and picturesque streets reflect a rich history. I was excited to meet Miriam, an illustrator with a special project about the city.
So my name is Miriam, I'm 26 years old, and I am an illustrator from Italy. I've lived here in Lisbon for 1 year, and I had the chance to make a book with a publisher. The book is called Il costruttore di cornici, o construtor de molduras, and it's bilingual Italian-Portuguese. In the beginning, it was supposed to be only in Italian, but I asked the publisher if perhaps we could do it bilingual edition, and I thought it would be great to have a market for both people, Portuguese speakers and Italian speakers, and also the families of Italians that live here, so they have connection with the Portuguese culture and language every day. Personally, traveling new places always inspires me a lot to create new stuff and to see things from other perspectives, you know. When you dive into a new reality, basically you can rethink of yourself too and see the place surrounding you like in a more pure way. And so the first thing was to read the text, and when I read it, I was in Italy back then, and immediately I started to think about some colors. So this contrast between blue and red. Then when I came to Lisbon, I realized it was mostly in the view, these colors, and I was very happy about it. So I was like, okay, it would be great to set the story in Lisbon, because in the text it's not really speaking about it. So basically he has some Lisbon symbols, like the bridge, El Cristo Rei, and the hills, also the castle of São Jorge. But then there is also some parts that are invented, and they are out of my fantasy and the viewer's fantasy too. I use colored pencils, watercolor, and then I do a lot of shades on this and use some digital color and collage too. So there is elements of reality into the book, and I can tell you like a little secret, many of them were taken from very old postcards and magazines. The oldest are from 1910. I did a lot of research before going to the final layout, because I wanted to be very special. This is an example of how the city view inspired my creative process. These are the buildings that you see that I use as a reference. That day the sky was very clear, full of sun and little clouds, and I was guessing, what if there is a big pool in the sky and just people having fun all together, partying in these Lisbon-style buildings. I think one of my favorite pages is this one, because I love splash pages generally, and I really did this one instinctively, and I just wanted to give a huge view of how his life is. So the frame built here is just very, very little actually, and it's all about his bottega, his loja, where he's working and doing stuff. We see a lot of details, like the raven, that it's a symbol related to the city of Lisbon, and that was made on purpose in different pages, and it has a symbolic meaning in the story too. This page has a lot of details, like this little shadow here, these little eyes, and the raven is always the body of the main character. I want to put a lot of contrast between the lights and the shadow, the lights and the shadow here, where the lights express a little bit of hope in the story, because this is a tense moment for the protagonist. And so the windows, these lights and the frame are a positive thing, as well as this flower that many will recognize as a symbol of Portugal in politics. When I make art, generally, whether it is a book or maybe a photography project, I always try to, give a message to the future viewer, and I like to put something of myself into the project. I like to have these moments of free expression and, let it flow, and then try to see how people would react to that, if they can see something from them inside the project or not. Even if the target is like young kids or maybe teenagers or adults, I think there is always something you can tell as an artist to the people.
Miriam invited me to attend a live concert at a local arts center, and that is where I met João Priolli, an accomplished Brazilian musician. The public transportation in Lisbon is wonderful, including the ferry across the Tagus River, or Rio Tejo in Portuguese. The river was the original factor that established Lisbon as a Roman port city long ago. I hopped aboard the ferry and journeyed to Barreiro. There I met Clara.
Hi, my name is Clara. I'm from Germany and I came to Lisbon last year in April, and the city is really great. I got into circus performing. My sister did an educational program, and I just finished school. I didn't know what to do with my life, and she was like, "Clara, do you want to come visit me in a circus?" And I was like, all right. The circus people were so nice, and they were like, "Hey, do you know how to do something?" And I was like, "I used to ballet dance." I was like, "Okay, here's a costume, let's go." And I just kind of started training for aerial silks, which is like the one of the most difficult things you could just start doing randomly. She just said, "Okay, now the first thing you're gonna do is just climb up." And it was a 10-meter circus tent. And I just climbed up there. I was like, oh God, okay. I don't know why, but I started to enjoy it. She said to me, why don't you want to work with art? Because you love it so much and you play the piano and all that. I was like, yeah, but you don't earn any money with that. And she said, if I sell your performance, are you gonna do it? Yeah. And then she just got me performances, and I was like, okay, now I have to do them, and I just started doing it. My favorite part about performing, I have two favorite parts. One is the moment before, right before the curtain opens. It's just this rush that, okay, you can't go back. You have to be here right now and be here. You have to be 100% here, because if you're not, you're gonna blow it. So to be in the exact moment and to be confident and prepared, that's hard, but also really rewarding, I guess. And the second part would be the joy of the people. Because one time I was in a circus and it was a Christmas performance, and there was this kid coming up to me after the performance, and she came up to me, you're like a Disney princess. And I was like, thank you. And it just made me so happy to know that it made her day. I started to write songs on the piano, and just when I was working in a circus, I just tried to still do music, because it was always there and it was always part of me. My family is really musical, annoyingly musical actually. There's always someone singing and playing and doing some kind of noise. I just need to do music all day, every day, otherwise I go crazy. Last year, I decided to walk the Camino de Santiago, which is this pilgrim walking thing that some people do. And I thought, okay, what am I gonna do 2 weeks walking all day? So I bought a ukulele and brought it with me and started to learn the ukulele while I was walking the Camino de Santiago. And I was backpack and ukulele and my phone in the other hand to find the chords, and I wrote my first ukulele song on the Camino. So now for some reason the ukulele is my favorite instrument, because you can always take it with you. Even you only have 2 pairs of underpants with you and 1 set of clothing, you can always bring the ukulele with you. My songwriting process is kind of funny. I have a little Dobby who comes knocking at my door. Knock, knock, who's there? Hi, I'm Dobby and I have an idea. And I was like, okay, come in. Dobby comes in and gives me this idea, and I just try to capture it, because I know that he's not gonna come back with the same idea again. So I just really try to not overthink it and just appreciate the idea that comes in a moment, just capture it, because I know it's gonna fly away in a second. And sometimes you have to be super patient, and sometimes in one day I have a song that I wrote in 2 hours and it's never changed. It's that song, it's finished. I know it's finished. All right, let's talk about my latest song. I learned so much while I was doing it, and today I would totally do it differently from the beginning. I guess the first one to be ready is always the hardest one. The minute I submitted it, I felt so proud because it was like, it's here, it's really there. It's like, I'm your song, hello. And it's called Não Vejo a Hora, which means I can't wait, I can't wait. It's about my Brazilian family. I have a host mother in Brazil, and she came to visit Germany. And she has never been outside of Brazil. It was amazing, and she really felt so many emotions, and I tried to get all those emotions into the song. I would like to do so many things. I used to have a lot of crazy ambitions, and those crazy ambitions, they make you stop. You don't do anything. So now I started to have small ambitions. Okay, I'm gonna release my first song, and my next ambition is to do the next song and do it better. So today, my ambition is to sit down and play on the ukulele and write and practice on a song that I wanted to practice. And that's it. My advice to people who want to be creative is that they just do it. Just do it, do it. Don't think, just do it. It doesn't do any good. It's not gonna help you in any way if you stress yourself. There's always this voice in my head saying, no, like why do you do that? No, it's just a... Like, no, shut up. It's gonna just keep swimming, just keep swimming. I guess that's a motto, just keep swimming. Bing, bing, ba-ding, ba-ding, bing, bing, ba-ding, bing, bing, ba-ding, 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 bing, 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 meow.
Thanks to social media, I was introduced to an inclusive group of local musicians called the Lisbon Indie and Do-It-Yourself Musicians. I was lucky to be invited to join in on their jam session at a recording studio called Lisbon Sound Society. We had a blast just exploring the music in a free-form way. Between my excursions, I wrote and recorded a song about social media, how people can feel lonely and isolated with it, and how I hope that we will find ways to connect people, like it did with me and my new friends on this trip. In Seattle, I have a fancy music production studio in my home. But for this trip, I built a mobile version with a powerful laptop, mobile monitor speakers, a condenser mic, open and closed can studio headphones, an audio interface, and a mobile MIDI keyboard. I had to get creative with the furniture at hand, and I figured out a great setup. Making some music here. I'll give you a little preview. For this song, I decided to start it with no drums. I often lean on drums as a crutch, and I want to get away from that. So I'm kind of making an artificial limitation so I can be more creative. I'm using this new piece of software called Scalar 2. It helps me design chord structures for the song I'm making. That's the verse. play the pre-chorus. And here's the chorus. This is the middle 8. It's a pretty cool app. It's really opening up my musical abilities. I didn't really know what the lyrics were going to be for this first song, but as I started to explore some ideas, I kind of landed on how do we as humans solve the problem of people feeling lonely as we build out our digital social network. Personally, I believe there's a solution somewhere. Humans are pretty smart and we can find ways to solve the problems. And it's kind of a new problem, so we haven't really, like in the grand scheme of things, evolution, we've only had social media around for what, I don't know, maybe 2 decades? That's just a teeny blip in the universal cosmos timeline. So far I've kind of written the chorus and the pre-chorus, but I feel like in some ways the verses are where I'm really going to explore it. So that's what I'm going to write right now. I play the melody with piano in the song. So check this out. Then I make little dots in a notebook to represent all the syllables. So here's an example of it. Da 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 da. Technology will redirect us. My phone will be inside my mind. Will we become entwined? I hope the demigods connect us. This is the pre-chorus and chorus, although I decided to swap around the order of the lyrics, and so that's why all the lines are pointing everywhere. At first I tried to record myself singing the vocals, but I was not satisfied with my performance, so I found a program that creates vocals with artificial intelligence. This program uses AI to synthesize the human voice singing my song. I can type in the lyrics on MIDI notes. I search for meaning and perfection, yeah. I search for meaning and perfection, yeah. Pick a voice. I search for meaning and perfection. Adjust the sound of the voice. I search for meaning and perfection. Create multiple layers of different voices singing in harmony. I wanna live before I die. I want a reason why. And export it into my DAW. There I add EQ, effects, and mixing to bring in each voice at the right time. This lets me control the singer as I would an instrument, which is very useful for exploring the harmonies. It sounds almost human, but not quite. In 10 years, the technology will be so advanced that it will be indistinguishable from a professional human singer. This is yet another disruptive technology fueled by the power of AI. I'm very happy with how this song turned out. You can listen to the final version during the credits at the end of this documentary. My trip to the artist's farm began with a 3-hour train ride to a small town called Castelo Branco. Gareth picked me up from the train station and we drove the country roads to a small interior village called Penamacor.
Okay, I'm Gareth. I'm an Irish artist, and I've come to live in Portugal 2 years ago. And my latest project is the Artist Farm, which is going to be a retreat for artists in the Portuguese mountains. And I'm busy with sculpture, painting, poetry, music, farming. Now I'm busy with the Artist Farm, and it was an abandoned farm. I'm reclaiming an abandoned piece of mountain, really, you know. It's kind of like my sculpture the last 2 years, this place, you know, and I'm actually putting in sculpture and landscaping the place as well. So yeah, my vision for the Artist Farm is a place that's focused on creativity and self-sufficiency. So firstly, self-sufficiency, and that's to eliminate bills, cost of living, and as a result, the creatives are going to have more time to focus on creative things, their art, and then in theory the quality of the art is going to be better. They're going to have more room to experiment, a haven for artists that can come here, work on their personal projects, and then perhaps work on collective projects without a pressure of having to pay a gallery space, having to sell that piece of work because it's cost them money and they need bills, they've got to pay the rent, they've got to pay food. They can really experiment, they can really do something new, and I think the world needs that right now because creatives are under pressure and it's affecting the quality of what the consumer buys in the end. It is a big project. I'm quite impatient by nature, so I sort of imagined it would all be done by now, but it's not. It's going to take another couple of years to really achieve the vision that I have. Personally, if I was surrounded by 5, 6, 7 or 8 different artists, it's important for me that they are not doing the same thing as me, and hey, they're going to inspire me. So that's my personal selfish motivation, you know, yeah. I started off in life as a musician, and then I developed poetry and painting and sculpture. I like the challenge of taking found materials, recycled materials, and then turning them into something that is worth something and is beautiful. So it's sort of a trash to treasure. And this for me is a really intense creative process because it's a challenge to make something beautiful out of a whole heap of ugly things. I don't believe that art is a technical exercise. So I like to paint the things that don't exist. I've no real interest in realism. So for a long time I've been just trying to sort of improvise and just not have a plan when I paint, but I've found over many years that I always end up with this similar format of these organic sort of shapes. I don't really know what it is. It doesn't have a meaning, but it feels so good to do it. It's a surprise to me when it's done, but it's a surprise to see that there's a similar theme in all of my paintings for many years. I'm interested in 1920s painters, but I'm interested in 1820s poets. You know, old poets, Shelley, Yeats, Byron, the Eternals. So my poems, they've got a very old sound to them, and the way that I like to put the words together is almost Old English. I like to have a real intense feeling in my poems. Yeah. When it comes to painting, I always like to tell people is you need to paint 1,000 terrible paintings before you can paint one good painting. And a lot of people, they get blocked in the creative process because they're painting 100 terrible paintings and they give up and think they can't paint. But I like to paint those 1,000 paintings, even the greats. I mean, Picasso painted a lot of terrible paintings, but we don't pay attention to them. Creating, that's all I want to do. The experience that I would like people to have when they're absorbing the things that I create, I would like to make people question, think, and maybe not quite understand what it is. I don't think that art or creativity is always supposed to be pretty. It's not always supposed to make you feel amazing and wonderful. You know, it's supposed to bring some kind of emotion out in you. That can be revolt, that can be inspiration, that can be just stunningly beautiful. The whole idea really of the artist farm is to remove these pressures that we have as modern day in the world today, i.e. bills. So that's via self-sufficiency, you know, which is making your own food and having your own water source, your own electricity. That's my journey in the last 2 years, you know, personally. So I've managed this year to grow 4 months of food and really be 95% self-sufficient for 4 months. It's been a real eye-opener growing my own food. And by growing good organic food, it's felt like alchemy. It's felt like a magic somehow, the way that this, you know, I was brought up in a city and I buy food in a supermarket, and now I really see where food really comes from, you know, and I have my chickens and I get eggs and it's easy, anybody can do it. I'm trying to demystify growing food and solar power and off-grid living, and it's much easier than what we're told. With my wine making as well, you know, it astounds me that people think it's so complicated, and it's really not. People have been doing this stuff for thousands of years. We've just forgotten how to do it. It's so easy. I'm not an expert, I can do it. It's easy, try it. I understand not everybody's got a farm, not everybody's got fruit trees, not everybody's got space to grow food like I have, but you know, we can all do it in a little way, and I enjoy showing people that it is really easy. There's a well here, and I suspect that it could be 400 or 500 years old. It's just, no one knows. One is 8 meters deep, one is 5 meters deep. This farm in particular is kind of special because it never runs out of water. The one well feeds all the gardens, and there's another well which in theory is drinking water, but it needs a little bit of cleaning. The road to self-sufficiency is possible. It's not something that happens overnight, but you don't need to be an expert to grow your own food and make your own wine. And I enjoy demystifying solar to a degree. Solar setups are really basic, they're really simple. Anybody can do it from a YouTube video. I've lived off solar for 15 years and my solar setup is probably less than 1,000 euros, you know, $1,000. And it's not a lot of money that's investing for 15 years worth of electricity. I've not paid electricity in 15 years. So I could ask someone how much money they've paid in the last 15 years for electricity. If they had saved all of that money, how much that would be. And now I own a farm, you know? So I make hats again sometimes, you know, something I like to do.
During my trip, the ability to use artificial intelligence to generate images became available to the masses, and I started exploring the craft. At the time of the production of this documentary, there are ongoing debates about the ethics of AI art. I include them here to show the state of the technology at this point in time. Even in this early state of technology, the results are impressive. During my trip, I created an opening animation for this show. I designed a font and logo with vector graphics, then I animated it. In the heart of Lisbon, I interviewed Giulia, a successful translator, podcaster, and musician.
My name is Giulia. I'm from Italy, but I live in Portugal. The idea was to stay for a month, and then after 13 years, I'm still here. What drives me as a creator is not necessarily one thing or one concept. I think it's more relationships with people or with things. When I collaborate with other people, this gives me a lot of strength to create, to do something different that I wouldn't do if I were just by myself. Not only relationships with people, but also with other living beings or nature. I think I don't have a specific creative process because lots of things I do are a bit random-like. Basically, I sit at the piano or I take the auto harp in my hands and I start playing around just a couple of notes. And then what happens is that if I have some feelings or emotions or maybe images that are stuck in my soul, in my mind, then I feel that they need to get out. And what happens is that they kind of stick to the music that I'm playing and they start getting out of me and just transferring on the music. And this is usually, where the magic starts. There are other ways of creating that I have, and usually this happens when I'm working with other people. This actually happened for one of my most recent projects, the Storm Factory. I was working with another musician, Portuguese musician called Rui Maia. And because we recorded the album during the pandemics, we were actually sending stuff to one another. So sometimes I would just receive his electronic music tracks and I would start developing from there. And sometimes I was sending just my own piano compositions and he was composing his electronic pieces on the piano. Many artists or musicians face the same problem when maybe they feel blocked, and this is one of the biggest challenges I have sometimes is to find the strength to just start. I think it is so important to get other inputs from either people or sounds. Then this gives me inspiration to make music over these sounds and to combine the two things. One of my most recent projects that I did, and I spent 3 weeks more or less in this Greek island of Kefalonia. The project that I proposed was called Ancient Sounds of the Island. So what I did, I spent like the first 10 days of the residency going around the island collecting all these sounds with my special recorder so that people could listen to these sounds as if they were in a sound walk. And then while listening to this track, I got inspired composing music on it. I think I've been playing with this folk band for the last 8 or 9 years. It's called The Loafing Heroes. It's very nice because, as the name suggests, it's a sort of let's say a way to celebrate the slowness and the French flaneur, so to kind of rethink reality in another perspective. The music can be defined as dream folk. In this band I play the auto harp, I sing, I play the keyboard. Of course, I am absolutely proud of these things, as well as the musical podcast that I do. It's about travel literature. I also work as a conference interpreter, but I have to say one of the things I'm most proud of is actually to find a way to balance different aspects of my life. It's just to find a way to be able to create art in a free manner, so that you're not dependent. To feel this freedom, I think it's the thing I'm most proud of. So my hopes and dreams for the future, try to find a way to combine all the things that I love, like my passions, for example, traveling to different places to record the sounds of places that I like, of people that I like, and to put all of these aspects together to find like-minded spirits with whom to collaborate. And what gives me most pleasure is really to share art, music, anything with other people that feel the same way.
Serendipitously, my high school buddy Alan was traveling in Portugal, and he invited me to stay with him for a few days. I hopped on a train and met him in Porto. We explored the city and enjoyed the delicious food and drinks. Then we visited the Douro Valley for a wine tasting tour. This valley, up to Barca de Alva, is the oldest demarcated wine region in the world. The terraced hills along the Douro River are a picturesque reminder of the traditional winemaking history, where the craft was passed down from generation to generation. The cosmopolitan scene in Lisbon is inspiring, so it was no surprise to meet Mukkul, a cinematographer from India, there. We met at a local park to talk about his career path and his creative process.
Hi, I'm Mukkul. I'm a cinematographer. I did some projects, and plus I work as a photographer, come grapher, and there are many things I specialize in. First I started with photography. It was almost 13 years ago. I worked as an assistant in photography, then I tried to get proper freelancing work, and then in the college I started doing the jobs, and gradually I learned the things, and I worked in different production houses. I worked in as well as magazines and newspaper. And somehow like I started as an assistant photographer, then photographer, then I tried to do as a fashion, travel, and gradually I got like image contributor from Getty Images, and then I started as assistant as a cinematographer. It's been almost 6 years. I have worked on several projects. I have worked in 2 Bollywood movies, 2 web series of both are Indian. Plus I have worked several like short films, 40 plus music videos, and so I'm doing corporate shoots and covering events and things like that. After that I started, it's almost 4 years I'm working as a full-time DOP. When I try to photograph for people, it's more like I'm trying to show them how they are instead of trying to make them look like an actor instead of how they are. When I frame my shots, I always think about what I need in shots. If I need specific for some shots, or like I need stock footage, or I need I need with different lighting, or I need different framework, slow motion, high motion, speed motion, things like that. I like to shoot. I like to be in the action. I don't want to be in a still place like I'm shooting with just with the tripod, and I like to go with motions and things like that. Yeah. My advice for creative people is if you try to work on your skills, try to make it better and better and think better for your content, you can have your success in your way. Since what I've worked with a YouTuber, he told me, he did research on it, getting small time YouTuber to high time in 6 years, and if you think in 1 year you can make it, it's not easy. But if you make content, if you proper research about the content, you can make it through. I think if you have if you want to give a passion for something, you should try to do it instead of trying to go and then give up.
My journey of interviewing these international creatives of Portugal was an incredibly rewarding experience. From Miriam, I learned to bring my ideas to a project and to see the world with imagination. From Clara, I learned to be open to unforeseen opportunities and to pursue smaller ambitions when I feel paralyzed by grand aspirations. Gareth taught me to be passionate about the creative process and to build a supportive creative community around me. Giulia encouraged me to explore creativity with attention to my emotions and feelings, as well as to organize my life to have enough energy to pursue my creative projects. Lastly, Mukkul showed me how to develop a career and to keep pursuing my goals in a competitive industry. These lessons are invaluable to me, and they will continue to guide my creative journey. Portugal is a magical place to make new friends. Like the Azulejos of Portugal, the creativity of these folks inspires me to believe in myself and in humanity in general, that we can imagine, play, create, and share our best ideas through the arts, finding healthy ways to live and enjoy the world together.
search for meaning and connection, yeah. I want to live before I die. I want a reason why. I need to feel love and affection, yeah. I'm all alone, I don't know why. Loneliness, the plague of our social interface, but we can't find the answer every day. If I could choose, I'd melt my mind with everyone. How would it be connected everywhere? What would we lose if we unfolded one by one? Then we could see the dreams that we all share. Deep in the midnight introspection, yeah. Our revolution set the pace. We're in the human race. We're being pulled in a new direction, yeah. A major shift is taking place, yeah. Loneliness, the plague of our social interface, but we can't find the answer every day. If I could choose, I'd melt my mind with everyone. How would it be connected everywhere? What would we lose if we unfolded one by one? Then we could see the dreams that we all share. Technology will redirect us, yeah. My phone will be inside my mind. Will we become entwined? I hope the demigods connect us, yeah. Who knows what wonders we will find? Loneliness, the plague of our social interface, but we can't find the answer every day. If I could choose, I'd melt my mind with everyone. How would it be connected everywhere? What would we lose if we unfolded one by one? Then we could see the dreams that we all share. If I could choose, I'd melt my mind with everyone. How would it be connected everywhere? What would we lose if we unfolded one by one? Then we could see the dreams that we all share.